Hey everyone, I hope you've had a wonderful week. We have been incredibly busy around here. I say we have the best customers in the world that have kept us pretty cram-packed in the shop, despite what's going on with everything around us. And so you guys are awesome. Thank you very much for your continued support. Now, as you've seen the channel transition a bit, you're starting to see some more automotive content. And most of you know, I cut my teeth in the automotive world and had quite a career in automotive as that evolved into motorcycles, 20 years ago or longer. And, I enjoy both sides of it. I mean, the fact is, I enjoy anything that burns gas except for lawnmowers and weed eaters. And so, you're going to continue to see a little more automotive content. And frankly, my phone rings constantly with people that have hot rods and cars and stuff, looking for someone to maintain them as well as work on them, do restoration projects and things like that. So one of the big things that set off our detail side of things, doing the paint restorations, was the 1936 Ford that I featured in the Wizards video. I was so astounded with how good those products are that I had to share it with you guys. Of course, that transfers over to bikes. Bikes have paint on them too. And so that video led to us doing a paint restoration on a 1965 Corvette Convertible. Now, the owners of this car, Dick and Lindy, have owned this car for many, many years, and it's an all-original car with original paint, in Goldwood Yellow. And that's a relatively unique color back in the day, but you don't see very many Goldwood Yellow convertible Corvettes out there. So they reached out to me and brought the car in for me to take a look at, and unfortunately someone had made a previous attempt to try to restore the paint on the car, and I have to say that it's considering that it was a deliberate attempt to make it better, it's one of the worst conditions I've ever seen on paint. So I put up a few pictures of the car and a couple of shots of the before to show the condition of the paint. And on Facebook, I think I put it on Instagram as well. But my email box, after I put those pictures up, people could not believe that the car could be that bad and still be able to bring it back. So this video is going to be a little bit different. It's not so much tech, but I mean, I received almost 100 emails from people just wanting to see how bad that car was. So what I'm going to do on this video is I'm going to show you photographs of the car before and after, show you the key problem areas of the car, and do a bit of a voiceover and walk you through the car. Now, you've already seen the restoration process. If you haven't, then check out the video I did a few weeks ago on, from Wizards Products, restoring the paint again on my 36 Ford. But I just wanted you guys to see just how bad the paint was on that 65 Vet, walk you through it, and show you what is possible in some cases, with restoring paint on a lot of these old cars. And it's a service that we offer now, and hope that you guys can take advantage of it. So if you want to sit back for a few minutes and go along with me, we'll give you a tour of the 65 Corvette. So we'll start with this one, and you can see that there's pretty severe cobwebbing going on there. This particular spot here was about 1.5 inch nick in the paint on the rear section of the car, where the unfortunately garage door closed on it. It peeled quite a bit of the paint away, and we're down to the primer there. Along the body line here on the fenders, and actually all along the fenders, you can see the evidence of the previous repairs where the paint color didn't match, and it was just trying to fill the scratches and not really done exceptionally well. But regardless, the paint color didn't match. And in total, here's another scratch you can see there, and that all the way through the paint. Unfortunately, there were 27 pretty severe nicks and scratches all the way through the paint on this car. This is another from the quarter panel. In this image, you can see again the severe cobwebbing along the side of the car. More of the cobwebbing there. This particular image, we're going to start getting into the sanding scratches. These are some of the worst sanding scratches I believe I have ever seen. It appears as if the individual's previous attempt to wet sand this car The only way I could duplicate this was probably with about a 600 grit sandpaper. But there were numerous places all over the entire car where it was that severe. Here, along with a convertible top, comes down. You can see again attempts to make previous repairs and just piling paint up on the surface. The paint just did not match at all. Here you see more of the incredibly deep sanding scratches. More there, and again, these were all over the car, primarily in the areas where it was most severe, where you would expect someone to apply the most pressure. So top of the hood, top of the back panel of the car, and tops of the fenders, pretty much everywhere on the car. They were deep enough, in fact, that I could actually catch my fingernail on these sanding scratches. There's the back panel of the car there. I get a better idea. Again, more of these severe sanding scratches throughout the entire car. That's a little better shot. Again, extreme cobwebbing. And there were a lot of pigtails on the paint surface as well, where whoever, again, wet sanded and polished the car, they had dirty pads on their buffer, or if it almost appears if they had tried to do this by hand and just damage this all original paint. This is where we started masking off the areas to try to fill in these deep scratches. So this is actually, you can see in the center of the photograph there, this was a pretty bad scratch right on one of the headlamp doors. Again, more marked by the green tape. This was damage done with the convertible top, or actually an attempt to drop the hard top on it, and it left some very deep and serious gouges into this original paint. These are more door dings and previous attempts to repair. Along the fender there, you can see on the body line where the something had drug alongside of the car, and then a previous attempt, he had tried to wet sand those off, and it actually burned through the paint entirely on that body line. So again, your typical rock chips and previous attempts there. More rock chips, especially again on this body line, a lot of door chips and things like that. So one of the challenges with this paint, we have to remember, this is a 1965 car. This is all original paint. And you take all original paint that's that old in Goldwood Yellow, then you also have a dark primer underneath. As the paint starts getting thinner and thinner, the color of the primer underneath starts to come through and the paint starts darkening. And then you add to the fact that someone else had tried a previous repair here, done a lot of wet sanding and very poor buffing. There wasn't much paint left, so we had to be very careful in preserving this original paint, but still try to make a repair. Again, more damage here from the convertible top, and you can see the previous repairs attempts there. More green tape marking more of the areas that required repair. This we went through several rounds of paint trying to match this. So this is again an original Goldwood Yellow car. The color code's XX, but the complication comes in again with the age of the paint. It is and the other is, they don't make true lacquers anymore. So trying to match a paint like this, an enamel, an acrylic enamel, to a lacquer is incredibly difficult, and especially with that lacquer, doesn't have a clear coat. Modern paints have a clear coat. So it was quite a challenge in order to get the paint to match that older paint, in addition to the fact that the paint was somewhat thin because of the previous repair attempt. So fortunately, after several attempts, we were able to get that paint color matched perfectly. Now we move on to the after shots. I do have paint correction lamps in my garage, so it makes it quite a bit easier to identify the haze and scratch. But you can see here, this is a direct reflection off of a panel on the car, and there's absolutely no scratch or haze remaining. pulled the car out in late sun. You can tell the sun is setting here to get an angle across the car and across the top of the fenders, and we were able to make all of those sanding scratches virtually vanish. Now, there were some areas of the car that because it had been dug in so deep with the previous attempt, that we could only buff so far. And when I started seeing the color of the car change or darken lightly in that area, then the scratches that remained, they just had to remain. But we were still able to bring the color out and restore a considerable shine to the car. It's an interesting thing with ceramic coatings. One of the reasons ceramic coatings are so expensive, it's all about the prep work. So the paint has to be absolutely perfect before you apply a ceramic coat. So any water spots, any scratches, anything is actually accentuated when you apply the ceramic coating. So it has to be as flawless as possible before you apply it. But once you do, any of those flaws are completely locked in with the ceramic coating for 2-3 years or even longer, depending on how you care for it. So the different tones of the photographs here, you'll see it was different lighting with sunlight and without, because I wanted to get an idea of the luminescence of the paint and also comparing to what an original Goldwood Yellow is. So I took photographs in several different and compared in different lighting arrangements to make sure that we were trying to maintain as much of that original color as possible, not buffing too far and the paint getting thinner. It's difficult working with a fiberglass car because they do make incredibly expensive mill gauges that will work with non-metal substrates. I don't own one of those. So it was very difficult for me to determine exactly how much paint was there with a mill gauge. So what I had was a factory paint chip in Goldwood Yellow and used that throughout the car as I was buffing each individual area of the car. And the second that I saw the color start to change or darken a little bit, that's when I stopped with the buffing. Now this is one of the repair on the trunk where you had the big chip, of course. This is a first coat, so we fill it up with that enamel and fill up the chip and then start to wet sand that area back down to blend it as best we can and make that area disappear. It looks darker because that again is the first coat. The primer underneath, the fiberglass is dark, so obviously that dark layer shows through. You can see here the paint match is absolutely perfect. And there you can, again, the damage is virtually vanished. There's a very small spot at the bottom of the body line. You may be able to identify it. It looks slightly lighter. And that's basically because the paint around it is much thinner. And so that, again, that variance in tone, the previous repair, the paint getting thinner, the underlying fiberglass showing through, lightening the color around it, would explain why you can see a little bit of it. But that's the best repair that we can make there. And there again in that picture you can see where the paint's a little different shade around the center body line on the tail panel versus the area around it, and there was just so little paint left remaining. Again, the idea was to preserve this original paint car as much as we possibly could, so that was absolutely the best that could be done in that scenario. So here's the passenger side front fender of the car, again trying in different lighting. At this point we'd repaired all the severe scratches and nicks in the paint along the nose and then buffed all of that out, so all of those virtually vanished, all the rock chips. We had a little more paint in that area. So this was after the final polish on the car. At this point I had not applied the ceramic coat. After we applied the ceramic coat, let the car cure, 2 coats of ceramic, let the car cure for 8 hours in the ceramic to harden. The car was lightly buffed one more time, and then another layer of ceramic coat was applied and then allowed to cure. So a little tour around the car. We did also do an interior detail. Now there were several things, like for example the horn button was rattling really bad, so we disassembled that and addressed that. The side view mirror was rattling badly. The area where the key is at the bottom side of the dash had been the paint had worn off the dash completely. So we went through, restored the leather seats, restored the door panels and the dash panels, and repaired every single rattle and click we could find from driving the car. And also went through, of course, cleaned all of the carpets. And of course, you can see there in the floorboard our box of Wizards ceramic coat kit there. There's a couple of components I wanted the customer to leave with. An after spray essentially uses a quick detailer to preserve the ceramic coat, and also gave him the paint and the activator to go along with that for future repairs. We also touched up some paint on the center console and also in the door jambs there. Now this, we did a full detail of the engine compartment as well, cleaned this up quite a bit, and of course the valve covers aren't stock on there, but yeah, went through and completely detailed the engine bay for him. Now the underside of the hood, of course it's all original, would be flat black on there, and we just kind of cleaned that up a little bit, did not repaint any of that, didn't want to run the risk of getting any overspray on anything, and quite frankly it's an original car, so it's expected to have a little bit of wear. Let's call it adding character to the car. But the engine bay turned out, I believe, turned out absolutely fantastic, and the car runs wonderful. A shot across the hood, you'll see there's a small amount of haze that's left. As I'd mentioned before, we can only buff so much. When you're buffing and polishing, you are removing paint. So we could only go as far as we could until the color change started happening, and once we saw that change happen, we just had to stop. But as you can see, there's all the nicks and things that were in the hood that were pretty extreme. The color is more vibrant now, and obviously a lot more shine without the deep sanding scratches and haze that was present there. We also went through the side pipes and touched up all the paint on the covers for the side pipes, the black rocker trim underneath the doors, inside the wheel wells at the edge of the fender. There was a lot of paint damage there, so we resprayed those as well. Some of the fiberglass had cracked along the tail panel next to the tail lights. We filled the scratches there and all the body lines, adjusted the doors. Now the doors open and close much easier and latch perfectly. Went at the wheels. We also, the wheels are perfectly detailed. They were ceramic coated as well. That'll make it a lot easier to clean the car from all the brake dust. And we did a detail inside all the wheel wells as well, cleaned those completely. The bumpers, they are original bumpers on the front and on the rear there, but there was some attempt made to polish the rear bumpers by a previous detailer, and unfortunately he went through the chrome in a couple of spots. We were able to polish that out a little bit, but again, the idea with this car is to preserve it because this is an all original car. You can see on the front of the nose where you would typically get your rock chips and scratches all across the nose. From all of those chips have been repaired, and they were completely blended into the paint, so they're pretty much undetectable even with a close inspection. The back panel of the car here, it was probably one of the worst areas. Again, if you imagine someone by hand sanding the car, that area that they could most easily reach with their fingers, especially along the center body line there, was where most of the damage was. And then of course on top of the fenders, but as you can see, it's pretty much vanished. The cracks around the rear bumpers, those were filled and repaired, and even though it's you can see the driver's side bumper, you can see a little bit of discoloration there, but nowhere near as bad as it was when it originally came in. And this would be the owners of the car. This is Dick and Lindy Jones. These folks are incredibly wonderful people. They've been customer of ours for a very long time, and he loves this car. He's owned it for quite a number of years, and both of them, they truly have a passion for this car and have enjoyed owning it. And it was an absolute pleasure and an honor to be able to do an aesthetic restoration on this car for them. And I know they're very proud to own this car, and I'm very happy to be a part of it. If this is something you're interested in having done, then you can of course send me photographs of the car, but it's kind of difficult to tell how bad a paint can be by photographs. So if you're interested in having us done, it would be great if you could set up an appointment with us and bring the car to me and let me actually take a look at it. I understand this can take time to do, and this is something that has to be, scheduled in, and it can take sometimes, a week or two to be able to do something like this. But not just paint restoration, paint correction, and also doing ceramic coating. And it doesn't have to be an old car. It just requires less work if it's a new car. So even if you have a brand new car, there is some paint correction that's involved before you apply a ceramic coating. But doing that on a new car will obviously make the paint last a lot better over time, and reduce the amount of maintenance you have to do on it, and also make it easier for you to keep the car clean over time. So again, if it's something you'd like to have done, please give us a shout, and we'll be happy to take care of you. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.